I never thought a single question from my son could make my heart stop. It was a quiet evening, just the three of us in the living room. The TV was on, but I wasn't really watching. My mind was somewhere else, scrolling through 1,000 thoughts I'd been trying to ignore. And then he looked at me, those big, innocent eyes that always seemed to see more than they should, and asked something I wasn't ready for. "Dad, do you love Mom or her best friend more?" I froze. My coffee cup trembled in my hand. My brain went blank. I blinked, hoping he would laugh, hoping he was joking. But he wasn't. He was sitting there, legs crossed, his little chin resting on his hands, waiting for an answer I didn't have. My stomach sank, and suddenly, the world felt heavier. How do you answer a question like that? I wanted to protect him from this, from the complexity of adult feelings and messy situations. But I couldn't, because the truth was tangled in lies I'd been hiding even from myself. My son's question wasn't just innocent curiosity. It was the spark that threatened to set everything on fire. I tried to change the subject, made a joke about something silly, anything to get him to drop it. But he persisted. Kids have this way of cutting through the fog you wrap yourself in. There's no hiding from them. I could feel it. The weight of all the secrets, the late-night whispers, the tension that had been growing like a storm cloud over our house, pressing down on me. I thought about his mom, my partner for years, the woman I promised to love and protect. And I thought about her best friend, someone who'd become a fixture in our lives, someone I couldn't ignore even if I tried. Their laughter echoing from the kitchen, the way they shared secrets I was never meant to hear, and now, my son had thrown a question into the middle of it all that left me completely exposed. I wanted to tell him nothing, to brush it off like it was a passing thought. But I knew I couldn't. Not without risking everything. Not without letting a crack form in the fragile world I'd built for him. The truth was waiting somewhere in the shadows, but I wasn't sure I was ready to face it, or if I could. And that's when I realized some questions, once asked, can't be unasked. They linger. They grow. They demand answers you might not have the courage to give. And what if what if it broke everything? I swallowed hard, forced a smile, and said nothing. But my silence spoke louder than words ever could. And in that moment, I knew the night wasn't over, far from it. Something was about to happen that would change everything in our little family, and there was no turning back. Before that evening, life had seemed normal, at least as normal as it could be for a small family trying to juggle work, school, and all the invisible pressures that never get talked about. My son, Liam, was 7, sharp, curious, and impossibly perceptive for his age. He had a way of noticing things adults thought were invisible. The way I flinched when certain names came up, the way his mom, Claire, avoided eye contact at odd moments. He saw it all, even when I didn't realize it. Claire and I had been together for almost a decade. We shared a home, bills, memories, and enough routines to make people assume we were unshakably happy. But happiness, I learned, isn't always what it seems. There were cracks, subtle but growing. Arguments over nothing, silences that lasted too long, glances that carried more meaning than words ever could. And then there was her best friend, Rachel. Rachel had been in our lives for years. At first, it was harmless. She helped with Liam after school, brought over meals when I was stuck at work, and became this quiet, comforting presence in our home. Claire trusted her. I trusted her. Or at least, I thought I did. But over time, her presence started to feel different, closer than it should have, more involved than was necessary. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was an undercurrent of something unspoken, something dangerous if noticed. I tried not to think about it, convincing myself it was all in my head. People talk about intuition, about gut feelings. They're often dismissed. But some things you can't ignore, no matter how much you try. I'd catch them exchanging looks across the kitchen, subtle smiles or quick laughs that ended abruptly when I walked by. I chalked it up to imagination, or jealousy, or maybe just my overactive mind. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. And then there was Liam. He was too young to understand grown-up complications, but not too young to sense tension. Kids pick up on more than we give them credit for. He asked questions I didn't expect. Questions about feelings, about loyalty, about truth. And I would stumble, deflect, or mumble half-truths, hoping he wouldn't notice the unease in my voice. That night, when he asked me if I loved Claire or Rachel more, it wasn't just a question, it was a confrontation. And it hit me with full force. I realized how precarious everything had become, how fragile the world I'd built for my son really was. All the careful balancing between honesty and protection, between loyalty and desire, was about to collapse. And in that moment, sitting there in the dim living room, I understood something terrifying. The night wasn't just going to be uncomfortable. It was going to be a turning point. Something hidden for years was about to surface, and I had no idea if I could stop it, or if I even wanted to. After Liam's question, the air in the room felt heavier, almost suffocating. I couldn't meet his eyes, couldn't let him see the storm raging inside me. I tried to smile, to shrug it off, but every instinct in me screamed that this was more than a simple curiosity. Claire walked in from the kitchen, carrying a plate of cookies, humming softly. She didn't notice the tension, or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. "Kids," she said once, "notice everything but understand nothing." I envied that innocence. I wished I could see the world through Liam's eyes for just a moment, free from the weight of secrets I could no longer control. But the question lingered, echoing louder than anything else. Love is supposed to be simple, isn't it? At least that's what I'd always believed. But here I was, caught in a maze of emotions I wasn't prepared to navigate. Love, loyalty, guilt, they all collided at once. And then there was Rachel. The thought of her, the way she smiled, the way she leaned into conversations that weren't hers, it was wrong, but I couldn't deny it. And now, my son's innocent question was shining a harsh light on every forbidden feeling I'd tried to bury. I wanted to deflect, to distract Liam with a story about his school day or a silly joke, anything to pull him away from the truth. But he wouldn't let it go. His small hands gripped the edge of the couch, his eyes searching mine, probing. And in that silence, I realized just how much he was seeing, how much he already understood without me even saying a word. Then, Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled faintly, and said, "Rachel says she'll drop by later tonight." My heart skipped. I swallowed hard, forcing calm into my voice as I nodded. I could feel Liam noticing something in my expression, something I hadn't intended to show. The day had been ordinary until that moment, and suddenly the ordinary felt impossible. I knew that once Rachel arrived, nothing would be the same. The secrets, the tension, the unspoken feelings, all of it was about to collide. And I wasn't sure who would survive the fallout, or what Liam would think if he discovered even a fraction of what I was trying to hide. Because deep down, I knew that tonight, one question was going to unravel everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and family. And I had no idea if I could stop it from happening. The house felt smaller that night, like the walls were pressing in, listening to every quiet movement, every half-whispered thought. I kept stealing glances at Liam. He sat on the couch, fidgeting with his hands, eyes darting between Claire and me, trying to piece together something he didn't fully understand but felt in his bones. Children have this uncanny ability to sense what adults try to hide. And tonight, Liam was a quiet storm brewing in the middle of everything I feared. Claire hummed in the kitchen, a tune that had always been calming. But tonight it sounded fragile, as if it were masking her own unease. She didn't know, or maybe she did, that something was shifting beneath the surface. And then there was Rachel, somewhere in the shadows of our normal, ordinary life, a presence I could feel creeping closer with every text, every message, every casual plan that pulled her into our home at the exact moment my defenses felt weakest. I tried to focus on Liam's homework, on the mundane, on anything to anchor myself. But every time I looked up, my mind raced. The question had opened a door I wasn't prepared to walk through. The fear of losing control, of saying the wrong thing, of letting the fragile balance shatter, it gnawed at me. And yet, part of me couldn't deny the thrill, the pull of something dangerous and forbidden that Rachel represented. Then came the knock at the door. My heart lurched. It was Rachel. Claire had invited her, without knowing the storm that her arrival would ignite. I could hear Liam's breath catch, could see the way his little body stiffened, as if he too sensed the tension crawling toward him. I forced a smile, tried to act casual, but inside, I was a hurricane of nerves and guilt. Rachel stepped in, carrying her usual cheerful energy, but her eyes flicked briefly toward me, and I felt it, the unsaid acknowledgement, the magnetic tension that had been simmering for months. Claire greeted her warmly, oblivious to the electricity crackling between me and Rachel, to the way Liam's question now hung in the air like a sword waiting to fall. The evening unfolded in a delicate, terrifying dance. Conversations overlapped. Laughter felt slightly too sharp. Glances lingered too long. I felt trapped in my own mind, trying to balance honesty and deception, loyalty and desire, all while Liam's little eyes followed me, searching, questioning, unknowingly daring me to falter. And then, just as I thought I could keep it all together, Liam looked straight at me and whispered, "I know something's wrong, Dad. I can feel it." A chill ran down my spine. That simple, innocent statement carried more weight than anything I'd ever feared. I wanted to reassure him, to comfort him, but the truth hovered just out of reach, too dangerous to speak aloud, too real to ignore. I realized in that heartbeat that the calm, the routines, the lies I had clung to, they were all about to end. And nothing could prepare me for what was about to happen next. Just when I thought I had a handle on the tension, the phone rang. Claire picked it up, her smile faltering as she listened. My stomach dropped. The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm, and it said something I never expected. "She knows." I froze. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. "Who knows?" I whispered under my breath, but Claire's eyes widened, and she didn't answer. Liam's small hand found mine, squeezing it, sensing the shift, sensing the danger. And then it hit me. Rachel had never just been a friend. There had been messages, moments, glances I'd dismissed, and now I understood why. Claire's best friend wasn't just in our lives. She knew everything. Every lie, every secret, every suppressed feeling I thought was safely buried. The walls seemed to close in, the room darker, heavier, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Liam looked at me, waiting, the weight of his question, and the unspoken truth, pressing down on all of us. Something had changed tonight, and nothing could ever go back to the way it was. The air in the living room crackled like a live wire. Rachel's sudden arrival and Claire's phone call had shifted everything, and I could feel it. Every unspoken truth teetering on the edge. Liam's eyes, wide and searching, locked onto mine, as if silently demanding the honesty I couldn't give. Claire turned to me, voice trembling just slightly. "We need to talk, all of us." The weight behind her words made my chest tighten. I knew immediately what she meant. The truth, long buried under routine and half-truths, was about to surface. Rachel, standing in the doorway, looked calm, almost too calm. And yet, I could see it in her eyes, the acknowledgement, the tension, the knowledge that she held power over a secret I thought was mine alone. I swallowed hard, finally forced myself to speak. "Liam, there are things about grown-ups that are complicated. Things that aren't easy to explain." My voice cracked, betraying the storm inside me. I wanted to shield him, but I knew the truth had to come out, even if only in pieces. Claire took a deep breath, then turned to Rachel. "I trusted you. I never thought." Her words trailed, filled with accusation, confusion, heartbreak. The air between the three of us was thick, every glance loaded with what was unsaid. And then, in a heartbeat, the moment of revelation arrived, not with a scream, but with a quiet, devastating confession. Rachel stepped forward, eyes locked on mine, and said, "He asked the question because he already knows what's been happening." I froze. Liam's innocent curiosity had been a reflection of everything I tried to hide. And the last twist landed like a punch in the gut. Not only did he understand, but he had been quietly watching, connecting the dots, holding the power of our secrets in his small, knowing hands. The room fell silent. Nothing would ever be the same. The question that had seemed so simple, so innocent, had now exposed the fragile truths of love, loyalty, and betrayal, leaving us all teetering on the edge of what comes next. The tension in the room slowly began to ease, though the air remained thick with unspoken truths. Liam sat quietly between Claire and me, his small hand resting on mine. I looked at him and realized something important. He didn't need every detail. He needed honesty, presence, and the reassurance that, despite everything, we were still his parents. Claire took a shaky breath and sat down beside him. "Liam," she said softly, "sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and sometimes feelings get complicated. But no matter what, we both love you very much. That will never change." I nodded, squeezing Liam's hand. "Your mom's right. Things might not always be easy for adults, but you don't have to carry any of that. We're here for you. Always. Rachel, standing by the doorway, gave a small, almost apologetic smile. I need to step back for a while, she said. I think that's best for everyone. There was no drama, no argument, just an acknowledgement that some boundaries could no longer be ignored. The relief was palpable, like a storm finally breaking after months of tension. Claire and I exchanged a glance, an unspoken understanding that the fragile threads holding our family together were still intact, but stronger because we had faced the truth rather than hiding from it. Liam curled up on the couch, resting his head on Claire's lap. I watched him, marveling at the resilience of children. He had asked a question that seemed impossible, a question I thought I couldn't answer. Yet somehow, through honesty and care, we navigated it together. I realized that love isn't always simple. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes uncomfortable, but it's also patient, forgiving, and endlessly resilient. Later that night, after Rachel had left and the house had grown quiet, I sat in the living room with Claire, Liam asleep upstairs. We didn't need to speak much. The shared understanding was enough. The weight of secrets had lifted, replaced by something more profound: connection, trust, and the knowledge that facing difficult truths can sometimes save what matters most. As I turned off the lights and closed the door to Liam's room, I smiled softly. Life would never be perfect, and questions would continue to come, some innocent, some impossible. But I knew one thing for sure: our family could face them together. And maybe that, in the end, was the most important answer of all. Even as I walked back to the living room, a tiny shiver ran down my spine. Questions never truly stop coming. And sometimes, the ones we think are innocent are the ones that reveal the deepest truths.